These images are of a liquid steel spill at Dofasco on Hamilton's Harbor. This occurred as recently as Saturday, November 14, 2020. Dofasco is one of the many industries responsible for pollution that contaminates the air and water quality daily. Despite the negative impacts on our environment and people's health, the government keeps industries like this open for economic gain.
For many chemical pollutants, sediment is the largest depository. What we call legacy compounds like DDT, PCBs, they were banned several decades ago, but they are still around. After they get into water, they tend to attach to the particles, every kind of particles, and then these particles settle to the bottom of the lake. Sediment gradually become a reservoir, become what we call the secondary source, releasing these kind of legacy compounds back into water and back into air.
Our human impact on the Great Lakes is certainly visible in this history that we find.
Indigenous worldview and traditional ecological knowledge applied in the government's decision-making would be the answer to saving our environment's rapid decline.
Well, a lot of times in today's society, the focus tends to move towards the socio-economic aspects of a given action. You know, right now, all of the socioeconomic focus is driving us to species decline and regulatory hurdles that have to be overcome, whereas the way we look at things is we start with the socio-ecological aspects of the situation. And so the economics can follow. If you start with the socio-ecologic focus, you can bring the socio-economic piece along with you.
Learn to understand the unique symbiotic relationship I, as a human being, had with the natural world, purely because our survival depended on it. Our lifestyle and our choices weren't influenced by politics. It wasn't influenced by economics. It was influenced by nature. The tides, the seasons, the weather. And so we started to appreciate this really fundamental concept is that we can't have one without the other. We all need each other to depend on one another. And it's a great opportunity here for science and Indigenous knowledge to create a real force to be reckoned with when it comes to stabilizing our planet, when it comes to stabilizing our existence as Homo sapiens. And I don't think you can have one without the other. And they will both complement one another if we be serious about integrating that knowledge as part of mainstream awareness and practice. That the solution lies with all of us. And capitalism, oh my goodness, which is driven by politics and economics, it's killing us. And what we really need to do is make a really strong decision and shift in our minds about what are we going to do with the legacy we leave behind. And that's a really important concept, because legacy is embedded in our culture. It is the epitome of who we are, is what we leave behind. And so if you really would like some sort of reference or a guideline into what a positive legacy may seem like in the next 100 years, I genuinely believe the answer lies with Indigenous knowledge and Western science coming together and educating everybody about what are the most important values to us as human beings.
There's been a long effort to protect the Great Bear Rainforest. It's a magnificent place. There's big cathedral forests and salmon runs and bears and wolves and orcas. But it's also home to the Heiltsuk people and many other First Nation tribes. And the Heiltsuk are one of the oldest cultures in North America. They've been here for something like 10,000 years in this spot.
We've always lived here, and we're always going to live here. We don't make sense anywhere else in the world. This is our place, and we have a responsibility to take care of it.
Our culture and our land and our territory are one and the same. They're so tightly connected with each other is that you can't have one without the other. And you take one away and then the other one will suffer.
The Heiltsuk people really, to me, represent hope. Here's a nation that's faced a grim reality of abuses and problems over the last 100 years.
At earlier points in our history, our people were much greater in number. After first colonial contact, our numbers plummeted to less than 200 people. We're still in a place now where we're bouncing back in terms of population, in terms of capacity to be out on the landscape, harvesting our traditional foods and managing our lands and resources.
They've chosen to protect vast areas of their traditional territory, millions of acres, because they understand that they can't have a healthy community without a healthy environment. Their culture is literally rooted in these places. It's in the trees, it's in the water, it's in the fish.
What makes us cohesive as a people and as a culture is not that our practices have been the same for the last 10,000 years, but that our values have been the same and that we've interacted with the landscape based on much the same principles for all that time.
Our ancestors would only take so much from a certain spot. They wanted the resources to remain intact for future generations to enjoy. Those teachings have been passed on to generation to only take as much as you need and not take too much, otherwise you may damage the stock of whatever you're harvesting.
We wanted to protect the landscape in all its vibrancy so that it remains healthy into the future. And to do that, we have to see a re-emergence of these First Nations as the stewards of the land. I think these tribes, and especially the Heiltsuk, are ready to step up and take on that challenge.
The community is in a much stronger place than it's ever been in my lifetime in terms of holding the authorities accountable for taking care of the places that matter to our people. We've developed some really amazing tools and models that allow us to make decisions as a nation and to take care of those places. We're developing research and monitoring programs that are generating information that's driven by Heiltsuk questions and Heiltsuk values, that's generating the data that we need as a nation to answer our management questions.
This beautiful landscape that we love is dependent on a healthy culture here with the Heiltsuk. So they make the absolute ideal best conservation partners.
When you believe in what you're doing, it's easy to inspire other people to believe in it too, and I think we've been really fortunate that way. There's this really natural urge in people here to want to be close to place.